Okay. It's the last meeting of the year. It's December 17th. It's Sunday. There's lots of football on. You may hear some football yelling in the background. Um, and at least some of us have complied with the seasonal beverage requirement. I see maybe Rich has complied with the seasonal attire requirement or request. Awesome.
Mine's subtle.
Um, yeah. So I think what we were going to talk about was some, Christmas programs. And because Ryan had a couple awesome ones
Cool.
at uh the end of the last meeting. And then Adam, you went off and found a couple, but your you said your fuse is not working, so I'll see if I can load those up on.
Yeah. Well, I
on
didn't use them in Fuse. I was just using them on YouTube.
oh, that's right. That's right. You had
Yeah.
some YouTube videos. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
not going to try to play YouTube videos
Yeah,
through
that's
the
fine.
audio
Yeah.
thing. Who
People
knows
can
how that'll
find them.
work?
Yeah. I can put the I guess the links in the well, then people are going to watch them now and they should be pay attention to you.
That
So,
oh no, no, no. Nobody needs to pay attention to me.
okay.
That's the last thing people need to do. All right. So anyway, I typed in this Yule log program that Ryan then also improved because Ryan, you have been working on a font editor for what, 40 years now?
Yeah, it's taking a while. Well, no, I was using my new version. I was trying to release, which has a few other features. One of which is it'll also do UDGs. Um, so it toggles in the UDGs into the A through U characters,
Yeah.
and then you just edit those and store them back. You just kind of twitch between modes there. And then a few other little things I'm going to release here, hopefully
Cool.
before Christmas.
Cool.
But yeah, so I was able to. I just saved them out of Fuse in one Fuse from the program you had, and then loaded those in and fiddled with them. One of the new features, you can just see the byte numbers, so I could type those into the data statements easy, quick and easy. But so I just kind of copied it, and you can copy paste.
Oh,
So I
nice.
copied them, flipped it, tweaked it a little, um, and then added those. I think what, four extra ones, and then yeah,
Well, I'm
that's
gonna
all it.
I'm gonna
That's all it
share
was.
the combined fruits of our typing. Well, my typing and your actual working.
And then you found that, yeah, the right candle needs the graphic A, I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So this started out with that fire, the UDGs being the same for both red and yellow, and then you went and edited them. I can see it, sort of doing this little shape changing when it goes to the other color. And this is there's a station down on Long Island, I guess, that puts up the Yule log, WPIX maybe.
WPIX did it in New York, I remember. Well,
Yeah,
I didn't watch it, but it used to be on the TV when I lived in Brooklyn.
it's infamous for doing such a
Yeah,
thing.
it is.
So we should put the this is the Timex Yule log.
Yeah. Well, can I give a little bit of background about this? I don't know this program in particular, but I
Yeah.
used to read Family Computing because when I was in like junior high school. So this Family Computing was a magazine that I think it was made by Scholastic,
Mhm.
and there was K-Power, which was part of it. And I was right at that age, about 12, 13 years old, when I had my Commodore 64. I think that's what that system from the 80s was called. And I used to type in they were very short programs. Like how long was this program, David?
Oh, this one was it took me 30 minutes
Yeah,
tops.
they were pretty short. And around the holidays, they would have these kind of programs like for Thanksgiving and Halloween and
Yeah, there's a
thing.
pumpkin for Halloween, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was a jack-o'-lantern because I remember typing that one in, but whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And each year they would have a different one, and they were never spectacular, but they were something you could type in quickly and have something on the screen like you have here. And
Well, and
yeah,
the thing with the family computing magazine is that they would have listings for like 5 or 6, the same program for 5 or 6
right.
systems, like you said, the 64 and the
The Timex
1000.
1000 too.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
them,
No, I don't think the 2068 though, but
I don't recall either. But there might have been 1 or 2. And uh if you remember Lon Stuckey, the person who wrote that program that you like so much, Death Castle.
oh yeah.
He and his friend, whose name now escapes me, prior to their Death Castle escapades, had started putting together a little zine, newsletter for I think it was just for the 2068 or for the 1000 or something, but it was about, computers and using computers as 13-year-olds do. um and someone, I suspect one of them, wrote in to family computing, and there was this little, you know quarter-page blurb
Mhm.
about their newsletter and stuff. It was pretty amusing.
Yeah, the other part of it about the K-power, the insert that was in family computing, which I think had a few issues of its own. They were all the whole thing was put together by teenagers.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I forgot that detail. That's very cool.
yeah. Anyway, that's all I know about family computing. I used to
Yeah,
like to read it, and that's about it.
yeah. Hey, Ryan, have you loaded up your program from last, because it's far better than the Yule log.
Oh, yeah. Let me get those queued
Far
up
better.
here. Um,
um
I'm gonna see if I can instead of doing my usual.
Shaky cam.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can come in additionally on the Pi, and maybe it'll last long enough.
And Adam, you had asked, folks to type or find some stuff, and so what I did was just went to the website. Oh my god, there's 141 results for the word Christmas. Now granted, there's probably duplicates.
This is on your website?
Yeah,
Wow.
let me just share. um Oops, I gotta move. Oh, I can see it. Okay, so anyway, yeah, there's 141 results. I didn't type in the Christmas tree. Oh yeah, this Christmas music might have been the one that, but I stopped at Christmas fireplace. That's where I um started typing in these things. This musical Christmas with the TS-2068. That's the Oleg Hifamenko. I'm gonna butcher that, I'm sure. Um, it's not too late to use your Timex to print out Christmas labels. Bob Swoger's got you covered there.
And that would have been using the 2040?
Actually, that's a good question. Oh, and if you need return labels, he's got you covered there, right? I don't know, let's look at that. Christmas labels with this is Night Times News.
It
What's
said
wrong with the
1989.
2040?
That's
Well, what would be wrong with the 2040? This program will print on a bigger printer using a Tasman. I don't know if you can read that. So this one's for, I wonder who Greg Dirts is. And it's timely. I mean, they
Legend
released it.
80 printer.
Yeah, they released this program, November 23rd. Plenty of time for your Christmas labels. Yeah, so there's no lack of Christmas programs for your 2068, and y'all have a week ish to
and
get
the
typing.
Sinclair.
Yes, yeah, get typing. And by the way, that's not just 2068 programs. There's also 1000 Christmas programs in there for those of you who want the true, authentic.
I'll type in the label maker.
Okay.
Not.
All right.
By the way, the brand of eggnog.
Is that the nog or the egg?
Oh, the nog, yeah.
That's the
Ran out of
nodding off.
egg. Ran out of egg.
We'll need to send Ryan. We'll need to send Ryan some sort of poke in the future to see if he's still there. I see that we have Joao. Joao, what are you doing up at this hour? And you too, Johnny. Oh no, it's a good hour for you guys, isn't it? I'm sorry, I forgot. It's not 2 a.m. in the morning.
So hi everyone. I'm about to go for dinner, just waiting for my wife to call me. So it's a good time, but at the same time, it's dinner time over here. And so yeah, there's always this struggle with the timing, but I wanted to at least to come a little bit and say hi to everyone and Merry Christmas, of course. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Cool. All right.
Johnny,
You've been really busy. You and the museum have been really busy.
man, don't even say anything. So let me just give a quick update. So we're about to just to give some first notice on a couple of things. So there are two pending things on our side that we promise. We have not forgotten about them. One, the SCLD documentation, it's only partially available. So we are waiting for our colleague Hugo, who basically made an interview with Alvaro, the creator of the recreation of the SCLD, to finalize a certain document, and then we're going to finally put that available. So that's one thing that some people here may be waiting. It will happen. Sorry for the delay, but we thought it was too crude, in the sense too raw. So we had the code, we were putting it there, but then we needed to provide some additional information. And we, as Alvar couldn't spend the time for it, we've been trying to do it in another way. The other thing that is really about to happen, we are now planning it for the beginning of the year, because we're launching videos every other day now, because of some events we did where we had the guys over here like Jim Bagley and others. So we've been releasing those videos. So the other thing that will happen probably in the beginning of the year is finally the Timex Computer World website that Johnny Red started many years ago, and we revamped it. And so now it has information about the computers in Argentina, the 3256, lots of those things. The ROMs, so for example, the test ROMs that were referred in the service manuals of the Portuguese computers, they will be available also. So we recorded a video, me and João, 1 day ago or two, so that will be launched in beginning of the year. So I just wanted to say sorry for the delay, guys, but it will happen. Like David was saying, yeah, it's been a nightmare with the amount of things we're involved, but good things. So we try to make as the best we can.
Can I ask why you call it a nightmare? Isn't it? I mean, the hobby's supposed to be fun, right?
It's a good nightmare. Yeah, but it is fun. Okay, if it wasn't, we wouldn't be doing it. But at a certain moment in time, this shifted from just our willingness to do it for the responsibility of doing it. So things that are happening behind the stage, for example, we are delivering to the main national TV channel in Portugal this week the documentary about Timex Portugal. So not specific about the computers, but about everything. So the watches, the Ugin Sweden, which were the POS systems, the registration, the terminals to register the payments and those kind of things for that Swedish company. Probably they will refer also the IBM projects, but slightly. But so what I mean is that's something we were able to create the context for it to happen. It was amazing. It was in our bucket list. It's a dream come true. Come on, let's be honest. I was in May with Johnny Red and the former employees that were interviewed. We're talking about more or less 9 or 10 people in the former facilities in Portugal. So we filmed there. I saw the edit already. Johnny has not seen it. No one has seen it on the team yet. So we need to deliver it before the end of the year. And it will be launched next year. It will go to air next year. I don't know when. We don't control that. There is one problem for now, which is it's not subtitled or anything like that. So it's not something I can say to you guys, we're going to show it to you. Right now, I can't promise anything, but I think if we do a good job, and this is just the starting point, this will help us to convince even the national TV that they should subtitle it and put it in some streaming service or something like that. So it's a new era of the project, but as you can imagine and remember, I'm not working daily in the museum. Well, I'm working daily in the museum, but I'm not an employee of the museum, nor is Johnny or anyone else. So the fact is, it becomes a huge effort, one that we like to have to do, but it's a nightmare in a good way. I spoke about this thing for the TV just because it has more visibility. The other one that we are filming for the same guys is, so we were hired to do a 4 episode mini series about the more focus on the museum. So the synopsis is something like, it's like, okay, I'm the Indiana Jones guy that is chasing objects to put in the museum. So, by the way, I need to buy a hat from Indiana Jones and to joke with it. But no, on a more serious way. So we filmed 1 episode already. We've been planning a couple of others. And so all of this takes a lot of time, but also gives a lot of excitement to us. We expect to do 1 episode about one thing, which is not a Spectrum, but was the first Portuguese computer, which was from Coimbra University, which is where I studied. So we are also trying to show that we can work on the history of computing in our country. And with that, probably put the seed there and expect that in the future we are able to do other things. So exciting times. Lots of work, but very nice. You're asking, Adam, how long is each segment? So the Timex documentary is 1 hour. The episodes for the series are 20 minutes each, more or less.
Joao, I'm guessing you can't release the 1 hour thing until it's been on TV.
Honestly, I can't release it at all because the property is from the national TV. Now, all of this was done. So we were hired indirectly through a movie company that challenged us to do this, and I said, guys, it's in our bucket list. If we find the partners, we want to do it, and they got it. They got the partners. So what I want to say with this is I was not in the meetings that happened until now. So I'm expecting to have the opportunity to be with the directors from the TV channel and all that, and try to explain them that there's people everywhere in the world that would love to see this. So we should subtitle it. Either they do it or we do it, even if it's something more amateur or whatever, and get their permission for us to somehow show it to our friends in US, in UK, and all of that. But I honestly, I can't promise. So my hands are tied right now. I think this is something we'll give, it will, like I said, it will be a new phase for the museum because it will show we can do things that no one was expecting, not even myself, to be very honest, so soon at least. And then let's see how we can progress from there.
Yeah.
If you guys come to Portugal after it was launched, yeah, for sure we can find a way to show it in the museum. Yeah, yeah, you are right. Eric is saying eventually they can put it on YouTube. They have their own player. It's called RTP, which is the name of the channel, Play, which is an app basically, or a website where you can see their programs. I don't know if they limit somehow based on geography, but a VPN can sort that out for sure. The problem is the subtitles. Well, bottom line, we could think about, I cannot be involved, but we can come up with a subtitle file, an SRT file, and somehow we find a way to see it.
Okay.
Yeah, Johnny, that's it. RTP Play, it's the name of their app.
Sounds sort of like the BBC where they've got all of their
Yeah,
content.
same concept. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, shoot.
Other things I'm trying to remember. So we'll be doing in beginning of February the GOTY Game of the Year. So we did it. We've been doing it in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's something done with the Portuguese blog Planeta Sinclair from some friends of ours. So there are something like 200 games made per year. So we have a ceremony.
How many did you say? Hundreds?
Right?
How many
200
did you?
at least.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
For this,
Best years were around 300 new games released for the Spectrum. And so a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we were challenged by Planeta Sinclair, which is from friends of ours that are also part of the museum, and they basically challenged us to push this concept of the GOTY to a new phase, a new era. And we said, okay, but we had to do it online because of the pandemic. I always said I want to have a red carpet in the museum one day for this, and I did it last year. So the fact is, last year we did it live for the first time. So we had 50 people in the museum, more or less. I had everyone using a tuxedo and presenting this. We had different presenters for each category. We had some funny moments. It's a session that occurs in Portuguese, but it's funny because so everything we put on the screen is also written in English. And so if you go to the chat, you see people from Spain, from Latin America, from Russia, from UK, all of them interacting, commenting, cheering for each other. So it's amazing the excitement it generates, but it's for gaming, of course. I'm not a gamer. Honestly, personally, I don't care about games, but I love the fact we are doing a kind of an Oscar ceremony. Let's see what we come up with this year. We're still planning. It should be around 10 or 17 of February. We're still trying to close that. Then in April or May, we'll have an international event over here where we are focusing on the demo scene. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the phenomenon of the subculture called demo scene, where basically it's what you do. It's people exploring the capacities of the computers to their limits. And so we are trying to bring lots of people that are involved in this from Central Europe, for example. Many people that wanted to come to the museum and have been trying to find the right moment. So because they have this network already, they get they meet from time to time. So this time we're trying to bring them to the museum around April, May, which is the birthday of the Spectrum. And so we try to put things together. And yes, and then let's see how the year goes on. And that's it.
That sounds just a tiny bit busy.
Yeah. And another thing missing, and I have to apologize in front of everyone, but specifically to David, is that what I promised about having David looking at the documentation is about to start, but hasn't started because of me, because of lack of time on our side, but it will very, very soon start, and that's it.
Well,
Exciting
since you
time.
brought up the game of the year, how does the game get chosen?
So there's a jury, an international jury. I'm not a member of the jury. As I'm not a gamer, I don't normally test games or anything like that. So André Leão, which is the mentor, the founder of Planeta Sinclair, is one of the key person. Then we have Felipe Veiga, which is another member of the museum, and a guy that is launching tapes over here. So nowadays we have physical releases of games in tape. There's a company in Portugal still manufacturing the tapes. So Felipe is the guy that is involved in all of that. Then we have guys from Spectrum Computing. We have guys from where? From, I think there was someone from the Yandex from Russia. There are guys from Spain, so people from El Mundo del Spectrum. So one is Ravi Ortiz. Um, Trying to remember, but it's something like 10 different individuals. We have 12 categories, 12 or a little bit more, because we introduced best Spanish language game last year, and best Portuguese language game. Because of Brazil, we also have lots of people from Brazil developing games nowadays. Um, and then you have categories like technical categories: best loading screen, best soundtrack, best whatever. Then types of games: arcade, platform, shooting, whatever. So something like that. I invite you to take a look in the at the ceremonies of the previous years, and specifically the one from last year, because I think it's nice to take a look at how it goes.
Yeah, if I recall, I looked at it, and you guys put on a real production for that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just like internet productions. It's
No,
people,
that one was
in the same room even.
physical. Yeah, that one was really physical. But man, if you do it, try to do it the best you can and try to surprise everyone. We even did one thing which is probably hard for people outside of Portugal to understand. But so there's this game in Portugal which is kind of, everyone talks about it. It's a game about kind of sex. So it's a game called Paradise Cafe. No one knows who created it. He signed with an alias. So anyone in Portugal that talks about the Spectrum remembers that game. But it's not a good game. So for people that care about the phenomenon of the Spectrum, it's kind of misleading that people talk about it when there's so many other things that are better. So last year, one thing we did, I came up with this, and I think it worked very well. So we interrupted the transmission, and we basically had a guy coming on screen, and he was basically pretending to be the creator of the game and saying that he needed to win the game, to win the award, not only last year but all the years before, because it was the best game and blah blah. But then the way he did it was a theatrical thing, of course. That part was not live, so we interrupted the broadcast, the stream, and we just projected on the screen. We were pretending to be surprised and all that, but it was, for a Portuguese person that knows about this, it was an amazing moment.
That is really crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think that's it. Johnny, am I forgetting anything the special that's been happening? So we had Jim Bagley recently here. So Jim is the creator. So Jim is a guy with 40 years of developing games for PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, lots of systems. And he was the creator of Cabal, the port of Cabal and Midnight Resistance games back in the 80s for the ZX Spectrum. So he was here. He's also a member of the Spectrum Next team. So he was here for an event with us. It was an amazing opportunity, even more for something which is kind of interesting, I believe, which is new game developers nowadays. They don't know, they don't have references apart probably of those big names from Nintendo and all of that. They don't have reference. So without knowing who he was, they start realizing they were talking to someone with 40 years of career developing games. And so he was mentoring teams of game developers over here in Portugal, and that was very exciting. And I think it's something makes sense for a museum to help to happen. So that was also a nice thing. A thing you guys may like because it's more hardware related and those kind of things. We can one day try to invite our colleague Rui to join this call. So we presented on that event. We presented a robotic arm, an industrial robotic arm, controlled by a ZX Spectrum. So the guy basically came up with a simple, well, simple, to me it would be hard for, it seems it's not so complicated, but it's an RS232 interface that he combined with the DivMMC. kind of thing. And so using a serial communication, he was able to interact with the robotic arm.
So yeah, I'm not quite. Is this from back in the day, or this is
No,
currently using an industrial arm?
no, current. So
All right.
we have some plastic robotic arms from back in the day. But when this started 1 year ago, more or less, and we were like, what can we do to surprise people in next year's event, which is this event we go every year called Lisboa Games Week. Lisboa, the name of the capital of Portugal. And so we're talking about an event that this year had something like almost 50,000 people visiting, okay? So a big event. There's a talk, but I think, yeah, it was in Portuguese, that one. There's a talk about he explaining how he did it, but so he did the hardware with the help of Alvar, the guy from the SCLD. So they came up with a simple RS-232 board to connect to the expansion bus of the ZX Spectrum. They developed the firmware needed and all of that. And then from BASIC, he was able to send instructions that would basically tell the robotic arm to turn on certain of the motors and make it perform things like move parts from one place to the other. He even adapted it to have a suction mechanism, because what we are doing, but we did not complete in time, is a tic-tac-toe game. So we have the pieces there, and so he sucks the pieces and he can move them to the I don't know the word in English. The board, yeah, precisely. The board to play the game. So we did the game, but he couldn't complete all the rest. So we only showed it doing some certain activities, not playing the game, but it won't be hard now to conclude that. João, I don't know if you can provide any other information that I'm missing on this.
No, I don't. I think you said everything.
Okay. So yeah, this is it, David. I think what's happening over here.
Now I
Yeah.
see why you say nightmare, but in a good way.
Yeah, but it's a good night.
Right. And I mean, it seems like there's always more to do.
Yep.
It's just it stacks up. I mean, literally, I have stacks of boxes behind me that I will be scanning during the Christmas break. Just because it's when you do it.
Yeah. Look, that part goes on. So we have an employee in the team now, finally, Bruno, who is the guy that does the scanning. And so he kept scanning some of the documents we had from the people in Timex Portugal and continuing the inventory. So, for example, the documents I sent to everyone, but when I replied to Gustavo, who is on the call also, before, are things that we've been scanning and that now we have there to process, but we miss the time to look at it and investigate. And the funny thing with this is every time we start, and David has the same experience for sure, every time you start pursuing something, you identify something new and you go after it and it goes and goes. It's like spaghetti, it never ends, For example, we did last June, we did a conference in Portugal. We called it the first ZX Spectrum Portugal conference, something like that. What we did was to interview the founders of the companies that developed, for example, peripherals over here in the 80s, okay? So joystick adapters, all those kind of things. And there was a company in Portugal that had they came up with some joysticks. They developed the joysticks, or at least they commercialized the joysticks, and they seem to be made by them. We were talking about this, and in the end of the day, I had Pedro Esteves, which was one of the directors from Timex Portugal, and Pedro was telling me, oh, I come from Standard Elétrica before I joined Timex. So I was working with the CRT TVs from ITT. So some brands that at least in Europe were, I don't know if they have any expression in US, in Europe, they were very, very important. And so the guy turns to me and he says something like this. I remember there was a model of the TV in the end of the 70s that had a port where you could put a game, kind of a game cartridge, and the joysticks you use to control the game, they look just like these ones you were showing. I was like, what? So I start investigating this. I received the game this week. I don't have the TV yet, but the game I already got it with the joysticks. So it's true, the joysticks that the Portuguese company was selling they were bought abroad or something, but so it's not something they came up with as we thought. It's something they reuse because they were being used before for other things. And so there was these TVs where you would take a part of the TV where you can tune the channels. So you take that like if it was a cartridge, and you put another cartridge there, which is basically a Pong game, and you transform the TV in a kind of Atari Pong console. This is crazy. I never heard about this, and of course, you spend time chasing this. Now I saw some of these TVs in Spain. I'm trying to get one somehow to test this, but it's fascinating because you learn, you keep learning about all of this, and this is the experience me and David had when we start looking at the paperwork. So we start learning things we didn't know. So I think that's what surprise and captivates us.
You start working on one thing and you just go down a rabbit hole. Go ahead.
Hi, hello, this is Gustavo.
Hi, Gustavo.
Hi, thank you for the document, especially the Portuguese document regarding the FDD 3000. Really, really great document, and also created by a good entity there for developer, the institute in Portugal. That will be great because in this document I found finally the definition of my two versions of the protocol running of the M397 interface. There is inside us that document that just explains the difference between basically is the nibble mode communication or byte communication. That's why I try to say on my email, and also that will be great to analyze that. Don't worry, do not translate to English because I can read.
Oh yeah, I imagine for you it would be easy.
Yes, exactly. And also thank you very much for help us in
No,
America.
don't worry. I just wanted, and just to be clear, I just wanted to explain that it's really hard for us, but it's not like, I don't want anyone to think that we are sitting on a pile of stuff that we don't want to share. That's not the case. I've been very cautious also because even with Timex, so I spoke with 1 month ago, I was talking to a legal representative of Timex in USA, because I wanted to be sure about some things we were doing for the documentary over here. So we are just being cautious, and we just need to, I don't want to release things that we were not able to at least understand where they fit and put them in boxes. Regarding what you're saying, and I think Johnny knows more about that than I do, but so from what I understood over the years, and for that interface, which I think we're talking about, the one we call the Timex interface for the FDD, there are at least 3 versions or something like that, because there's one version without the gate array. There's then the version with the gate array that they did with that research institute, which is very famous nowadays in Portugal. But they started at the same time as Timex Portugal started in the computers. And so that's why there's so many connections between the university in Lisbon area and Timex. And then in that one with the gate array, if I'm not mistaken, we saw at least in terms of hardware, there are at least 2 different versions. What I'm thinking, and I'm asking the help of Johnny, is so Johnny, most of the interfaces, they have a second board. You remember that is on top of some ICs, but we know at least 1 or 2 examples without that board.
Yes, that's what PAL patched, because they need an additional flip-flop different from Timex or for Sinclair. But yes, correct.
But there is a few, not many. We saw there was a colleague of ours that got one, and we were surprised with that. And so what I mean is, and then I think we got one for the museum, I'm not sure, without that additional flip-flop. I don't,
Yeah.
I can't be more precise right now, but there are a few variants of that.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
In personal, my FDD3 interface has this little bar put on
Okay.
the top. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Exactly.
it's the common thing here. Okay, nice. Okay,
Cool.
we
Thank
have
you.
questions about TS-Pico. Adam is saying, I was just seeing the message to see if there's something to answer.
Oh, from Adam? Yeah, there's apparently some good-looking guy in a tux in there.
Looking-
I don't know.
looking at- And the link was, Johnny, the link was the one for Gotti?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Last one.
okay. Very well,
So
David, I think
that's
probably
why
can
he's
switch to
asking
the
who is in the
TS-Pico.
tux.
Yeah, the tuxedo guy.
Cool. Thank you, Joao. That's awesome.
My pleasure. Sorry for taking so long, but
No, this is, I mean, the reason that we do Sundays is
Yeah.
so y'all don't have to join at 3 a.m.
yes.
No,
We've been making an effort. So Johnny is normally here. Ugo, I think he participated in one or two.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to make an effort to be present because we want to be part of this US more, let's say, US community. So we thank you for trying to adjust to us, and on our side we try to be present. We can't do it all the time. I'm not so concerned when I'm not, because I can ask João what happened. So
no, and one of the important part of this exchange of the information is because maybe for Portugal is old news, but for us it's a very good new news because we don't know the history of you. That is the key point. Maybe for yours is in history, or maybe I don't know.
Some things are, other things aren't. Come on, I had the opportunity, because I'm here with you guys. I had the opportunity to be with David, for example, interviewing Danny Ross, which was obviously an highlight. So we all win and we all learn from this. And today as I wrote before, today we think we know something. In 1 month we may find out that something was slightly different, and so it's good. We don't want to know things just to say we know. We want to know things to share and to discuss and to brainstorm, of course.
Yeah, no, this has been fantastic. I mean, the amount of just knowledge that we have learned, about what happened in Portugal and how much, Portugal was important to, the Timex sphere has been really fantastic. I mean, we just did not know anything. I mean, we knew a tiny bit, years and years ago, and it never really grew until you started that museum. And then,
And to be very honest, I didn't know much of it because I was more a Sinclair collector. Johnny was the one always focusing in terms of documentation on Timex.
I mean, his site was the place to go, for years, literally. I mean, that was it.
Yeah, nowadays what we did on the website, what we wrote there was, so we also put a link, of course, to your website, David, because as I wrote before, to me, there are two sources of information right now about Timex. This is the one we are revamping, and yours, which has much more detail on what happened in US, and we don't want to try to do that because we can't for now, at least.
I wanted to bring up something you were saying earlier, that there's the Portuguese language there, kind of a barrier, which I realize isn't as much of a barrier as I thought when the prototype for, what is it, the 3256? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
The article that I read that in English that was actually written in Portuguese that was translated automatically. And I don't know how good the translation was, but it was good enough that I could read it and understand. And
when it's written, you shouldn't have a major problem. The problem is, for example, if you try to see the Gotti video where we talk and we use slang and we use typical expressions, then it's a nightmare. It doesn't work. But when we're talking about written things, it should be very acceptable.
It worked really well, I thought. Did anyone else get a chance to read that article in translation? Does anyone even know what I'm talking about?
Did you post the translation, Adam, or
I think I posted a link to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are other documents on that computer, because I remember we have one where it says it was going to be called 2256. So there are a few other things. Guys, I'm really sorry. My wife had dinner already and she has to leave, so I need to go and at least say goodbye to her. She has a shooting to do this night. So sorry for not staying more time, but I'll try to catch up later. And yes, anything that you need or drop
you.
a message. I'm monitoring the forums now.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Joao, and Merry Christmas if we not talk
Merry
before.
Christmas for
Yes.
everyone. Okay.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry
Bye bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Good meeting.
Hey, Adam, I'm looking for your link, but can you post the link to
I'm
the
actually looking for it as well, so
Okay.
don't you worry.
All right. So while Adam's looking, Eric and David Solly both had questions about the Pico project. So, Eric, you want to go first?
Did you talk about it the last meeting? Because I wasn't there.
Yeah, we've talked about it somewhat during the meetings, and I finally I'm caught up with posting those. I did all three of them yesterday. All three of the ones that were not posted yet.
Okay. Well, I don't want to repeat stuff too long. You've already talked about it, but I got that email and looked at it, and I was like, "Wow, somebody finally did it."
Mhm.
And
Well, and some of the somebodies are here.
oh, okay.
Gustavo is one of the somebodies, and Jeff is one of the other somebodies.
Yeah, that was my other question: is the people who did it, are they on this meeting? And then I have two questions about it. First one is it possible to have a long-term goal of making this fit in a cartridge? And if I could help out with that part of the project, I would be willing to. And then the other thing is, it talks about how it's got an expanded ROM with 512.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, is that somehow accessible by the programmer?
Gustavo?
Like, because years ago, well, not actually, it's not that long. It was about a year and a half ago. I started working on a basically a GUI for the 2068, and it has a mouse pointer. And I got partially through it, and then got put on pause. But someday I'd like to finish that, and so I want to know more about this device.
Okay. Let
Okay.
me ask you first. Hang
Okay.
on just one sec, Gustavo. Let me ask you first about your GUI. How far did you get?
Well, I basically found a way to compile it and write it in C and access kind of what you would call mouse routines that use the joystick.
Okay.
And it's and then I have a section that I wrote before that's in BASIC that I found a way to convert that using those what are they called? I guess compilers or something, but they convert my BASIC code into machine code, or I can hand convert it to C and then have that thing compile it. It's got a lot of pieces that are very hopeful.
Okay.
It's just that it's finding the time to dedicate to it.
Yep. And are you familiar with GitHub? Have you ever used it?
Yeah, I was actually doing another project, which is a browser that runs completely in the Java environment, and I was about to put that. It's about 80% done. There's nothing to do with 8-bit computers, but it's a completely Java browser, and I was going to put that in a GitHub sometime in the next year. I just don't want to put stuff when they're not really completed yet.
So I'll get back to the GitHub thing in a minute because it relates to your work on your GUI thing. Hey, Gustavo, you want to talk about the ROM and the cartridge idea and the other things?
Yes, of course. Regarding the cartridge, the hardware support mapping ROM or RAM or flash in this case, ROM or RAM on the dock bank. The position of the ROM of the RAM of chunks could be configured, but actually we support the minimum mapping for this. But if you gain access to the low-level routines that could be possible in a phase 2, you can write your own program to handle all the hardware resources on the board. That could be possible because we're thinking in an assembly interface to use all the commands and all the powerful of the interface. Actually, is not documented yet because it's hard to document this, but will be available maybe sometime next year. Regarding the use a cursor for mouse or pointer, that could be possible. You need to override using interrupt functions to move a pointer on the screen, and then have an interface, a serial interface to catch the exactly time of the click and the cursor pointer. That
Well,
could be possible, but yeah.
I actually have that working already. I
Okay.
found someone who wrote something. Gosh, what was it? Oh, you know that Minesweeper game?
Yep.
Yeah, somebody wrote a Minesweeper and they had a mouse in there. And so I basically copied their code and same logic. So that already works.
Okay,
So-
but using a serial mouse.
It uses the joystick port, but you can plug in a modified mouse into the joystick port.
No, I ask you because we use a microprocessor on the board. If you have using a serial mouse, we can catch directly the bytes. It is necessary. When
Yeah.
it's not necessary to use bit by bit using a joystick port to read the position.
Well, this program that it was Alvin who wrote this program, Alvin Albrecht,
Oh, okay.
and it uses a you can use the keyboard, you can use Kempston mouse, you can use a 2068 joystick, or something called an AMX mouse, which I suspect might be similar to the Commodore 1351 mouse, which actually has a mode that is like a joystick. And is, it's very easy to write programs that use it.
Yeah, that's true. Though when you start the program up, you had a choice.
Yeah.
You could pick the Kenston or there were 3 choices, I think.
So
Okay, emulate the
basically
pointer.
the
Yes,
GUI
with the direction.
OS would basically have a mouse setting where you would go and just choose which one you want to plug in.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Gustavo, we talked
Yeah.
in one of our meetings, I think, because I think Eric may have brought this up somewhere else, or somebody else brought up the question of, can the Pico run out of the cartridge port? And I think you guys said that there might be signals that are missing.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I think we figured that they were there though.
Well, no, the reset. There's no reset in the cartridge
Oh,
port.
That's
so
it.
Not
Thank you.
reset
The
was
Pico
missing.
uses a reset, so
It does.
it won't work.
Thank you, Carl.
No, and also we use another signals. We use BE on the Timex Sinclair exists on the cartridge. The rest exists, ROS6L and XROM. I don't remember if it exists or not on the dock bank.
I think it's on the cartridge bank. Yeah.
Yeah, if it exists on the cartridge, could be possible, but the problem maybe is physical because we cannot mount in a small board all the logic needed for the TS-Pico.
We could
Or-
replace almost all of that with, you know, one small CPLD or something. But the issue really, I think, is that reset, because the Pico takes a certain amount of time to boot, and it's longer than the 2068 takes to boot.
No, another possibility is to rewrite the code and try to see if we can use as a real dock cartridge application with the operating system for the Pico.
But
Okay.
the reason this is relevant is not just to create something that's difficult to do. The idea behind it is that I would like to create a little cartridge that has
Okay.
the built-in GUI, and it has the Pico technology built into it. And you basically just plug it in and turn it on and then start clicking on things.
Mm.
The best way to do that is to replace both ROM on the Sinclair. If you put the operating system replacing the ROM, you don't need put nothing on the cartridge,
Well,
because all the logic mainly is to replace the ROMs.
but Eric, your program runs as an AROS or an LROS. I don't know which one off the top of my head, but that's your goal, right? Is to have it run out of the
It's gonna
cartridge,
run
sort of
kind of like a
OS64.
cartridge does, yeah.
Yeah.
But as soon as you click on a game icon or something in the GUI, then it essentially would run a command that then runs something off the Pico.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you could put your code into one of the empty slots in the Pico's flash ROM, because the slots support both, an operating system ROM or a cartridge ROM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, that would not fit, in the cartridge slot.
Well, not yet. That's a future goal. Figure out how to miniaturize these components.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And that's part of the point of the whole thing, is that, the hardware is open source, and we're slowly building out the GitHub page for.
Although I do like the EBU. Is that what it's called? BUE or what?
BEU?
BE. Yeah. I
Yeah.
do like
What
that
is that?
idea too.
BE?
And
What
that
is
could
that?
be. That's
Well,
just
remember,
the big.
the cartridge port is nice and small, but there's only one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the BEU is could be a first way of doing it. Like just have it built into that whole idea. And then a second version would be to try to miniaturize it into a cartridge.
Yeah. Hey, David, you might have had a question or two. Your mic is your Zoom muted. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Where can I buy the low capacity SD cards? Because most of the cards in the market are 32 gigabytes and higher.
Oh, so you got one with your computer, your Pico board,
Yeah, which is I think it's five
a 256
something
megabyte, I think.
megabytes.
Yeah, it's a 256.
And you've already filled all that with Timex software, I assume, that 256
Well,
megabyte one, right?
There's only a
Not
couple of
quite.
programs on there as a demonstration.
The thing is, will the TS-Pico read a higher density
Yes.
micro SD card, or?
Yes, I have a 16 gig in my Pico right now.
Okay,
So-
because the lowest empty ones I've got are 32 gig, which seems to be.
I mean, I don't think it'll be a problem.
But that should be okay, because that's the limit of the original high capacity SD cards, right? Was 32 gig.
Was it?
Once you get higher than 32 gig, you get into the XC, right? The expanded capability or whatever. So the 32 gig, I think, is the cross point. Anything 32 gig or below is probably using the HC, the original SD card standard, and anything above 32 gig, it has to be an XC compatible
Okay.
SD card.
Oh,
It's just that
David,
using
I am using a 32 gig on mine and it works fine.
Oh, okay, good.
okay.
Is there a
How
certain
many-
file? Is there a
it seems
certain
like a
file
waste.
system?
FAT32.
Yeah.
Okay.
has
Yeah, it
everyone
doesn't-
bought this thing already? Because I haven't bought a Pico yet.
Yeah,
Well-
David, Solly, Carl, have you built yours yet?
I have not built it yet, no, but I do have it.
Okay. Joe. I mean, I don't know if you guys want me to out you. But yes, there are multiple people here.
Really, you're going to be outing the people who haven't bought one, you know?
Yeah, it's just that using gigabyte memory card seems like a waste of memory.
Okay,
Well, at some
the-
point, you won't be able to buy a little one for any cheaper.
Hmm.
so right, so you know, I'll tell you what, I bought these little 256 megabyte cards because I don't think that, you know, I don't think I can fill it up. But B, they were really cheap. They're like I don't know, they're $1 or something each.
Hmm.
So you know, I figured I'll include an SD card because it's required. The Pico will get really upset if you try to boot it without an SD card that doesn't have you know, files on it. Or at least it needs an SD card with a minimum of a directory called tap. And if you don't have that, it gets upset.
How long has this Pico been available?
What is this? Less
Weeks?
than a month.
Oh, okay. And are there still some left?
There are still some left. I can't tell you how many boards I have.
Is it
sitting in a
considered
drawer.
beta stage still, or is it considered finished?
Oh,
I'm
so
not
well,
even sure.
it's a 1.0. Let's put it that
It's
way.
1.0. Okay.
Yes, and
never
Ricardo
finished.
has been writing. You know, Ricardo wrote a program that we need to test that will load a file from the SD card and program it into the flash slot. So in the use case here is to load a cartridge file from the SD card and then program it into one of the slots in the flash ROM or in the static RAM if you want. It doesn't matter. And then you can, you know, play that, whatever that cartridge happens to be.
Well, that'd be cool. So are there some pieces of software that were only on cartridge?
Yes, there were. There was, well, only on cartridge. That's a good question. OS64 is one that was only on cartridge. But in terms of Timex software,
Yeah, everything
was
yeah,
cartridge.
Timex, both. It had both.
Yeah.
Can you make TAP files from cartridge files with a tool?
Can you make no because
I don't think you need to, though. I mean, everything's already available in tape
Well,
format, right?
That's what I'm asking. Is
I
these
think I've
few
done it with,
pieces?
with Fuse. I think I've done it with Fuse.
You should be
Um,
able to because you just need to get rid of the the header bytes and the rest of it might be the same, but
Okay. Well, that was
I mean,
one of my
it's-
questions about the Pico was it said it only ran TAP files, not other files.
Right. So then the reason, the rationale behind that is there are multiple file formats in the Spectrum world, as it were, and these tap files are the lowest hanging fruit. They're the easiest to parse and understand. There's another format called, I'll say it in the English way, TZX.
Mhm.
And that supports more formats of what programmers could do with cassette tapes. Like, so for
Or
when
compatibility too, right? Like, so it works exactly like it did on real hardware.
that's my
Well,
understanding. I don't know.
I think it's only if they did some copy protection, essentially.
Well, that's actually what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So
In the GUI code
Otherwise-
that sorry. Go
Otherwise,
ahead.
Otherwise, tap is just the bytes
Yep.
that's on a tape normally. TZX, as far as I understand, has a mode that's very tap-like, but also has a mode where basically it's in some way, I think it's some sort of compression of the audio so that, or maybe an idealized compression of the audio so that if, like the time between the peaks or whatever it was, so that if there was a custom reader a la for copy protection, that it would actually reproduce what was on the tape that was non-standard. That's really I guess my point I'm making is that it's only necessary, I believe, if what was on the tape originally was non-standard.
And a lot of times you'll
Yes.
buy these little cassette player things that are basically an Arduino, and they basically do the TZX stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they'll do tap as well, but they're called like TZX Dunos or whatever. But
That's
Right.
The,
So
the,
let me clarify what I was doing in code. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with Windows file extensions. We've been using it for what, 40 years or something. But you have like the dot whatever extension, and I was basically creating the user-defined graphic icons for different file extensions, and one would be the .tap and then the ZX one, and then of course I did like a TXT one and a couple other standard ones that any computer platform is going to have.
Yeah.
And so that's where I last part that I was working on. And if eventually the Pico can support running the different formats, that would go along with what I was already coding.
Well,
The
here's
next question, though, what format of the tap files does the Pico use? Because there are at least two. One is the Lunter and the other one is the Warievo.
I'm only aware of one tap file format.
Yeah,
Talking
David,
about
David,
a
I think
doc file.
I think it uses the Lunter because the Warievo, if I'm not mistaken, that one is kind of squirrely, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Is he talking
It's
about a
not-
doc file?
not
No,
have any, not
No,
have
tap
any,
files.
yes, regarding the tap file for the Pico side, we cannot have any problem with any character in the name, for example. And also, if you use UDG or any specific character, in case that we support the lprint command on the Pico, we can pass all the bitmap defined in this time. This is online converter from the Pico technology. And we support UDG graphics if necessary to print or whatever. We don't have an issue with handle the UDG. And another important point is the compatibility regarding the special loaders, loaders for any program or game or whatever, or copy protected mode, is the response to support that is the following. We use a different port, like a keyboard port. The microphone or the ear use a port 254 on the Timex, and we use a different I/O port. That is the reason, because if you or the program freed the port 254 to load the game or the block, in this port we don't have any data to put with the Pico. That is the reason, because it's impossible to support all the loaders with the Pico technology.
Okay. Next question. Has the save routine been fixed, or does it still save everything to its own separate tap file? Because it would be nice if it would save files to an already opened tap file.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's in our GitHub issues list. And so
Version 1.1.
yeah, I mean, there's a couple other refinements that we're working on, just to make things. The Pico is very picky let's put it that way, and it's not very happy with typos, as Willie has discovered. And so one of the things that I in particular am working on is what I would call bumper bowling. In bowling, you can bowl like an adult and get gutter balls, or you can have the bumpers put out. And I want to put the bumpers into the Pico, so that if somebody issues they type something really poorly or something that's just kind of a little off whack, that the Pico doesn't lose its mind.
Has anybody tried saving to the Pico source code from other Timex Sinclair programming languages like HighSoft Pascal or HighSoft C?
Well, how are those saved, David? Do you know? Is it using the code?
Well, for a HighSoft Pascal, it just saves it as a machine code file, a machine code text file.
Okay, so probably using the code extension on the save whatever with code.
Yeah, well, what it is you do a P for the source code. You do a P comma start number of the code you want to save, comma last number of the code you want to save, and it saves it out as a bit file.
Okay.
Which, when reloaded into the Pascal interpreter, the interpreter itself translates the code back into the commands that Turbo Pascal uses. HighSoft Pascal uses.
Okay. Do we have
what part of the code? What part of the code are you mentioning?
Well, I think it boils down to how is it saving the code? Is it using the Timex routine to save the code? Doesn't sound like it is. It sounds like it's using its own tape routines. So that probably wouldn't work very well with the Pico unless the Pico was, you imported that code into the Pico somehow and maybe you could use that. But
for the Pico side or for the Timex side?
Well, I'm saying if he's using
usually
HighSoft,
when you save it, it goes straight to the disk. It goes straight to the tape.
Okay.
But
right,
I've been using HighSoft Pascal, say in the Z80 emulator, and also in the 81 emulator, and I can save it to a TZX file or a microdrive file or even a TAP file. So
okay. We'll have to look into it. We at least have the HighSoft Pascal, so we can.
And you are running the Pascal, the HighSoft Pascal with
the
operating
I put the link
system.
in the chat, Gustavo.
Because I've got the
I've
got the TS-2068 version of HighSoft Pascal.
So can I ask back on the 512 memory thing?
Yes.
So originally my code, I was pretty much constrained to what, 3248K. So does this mean I actually can access 512K? And is it bank switching it? I mean, I'm not sure how I would utilize that.
So both the SRAM and the flash can be certain slots of the flash can be switched into the dock bank. So yeah, if you want to do,
so it is bank switching. Okay.
Yep. If you want to use the,
so I can still only run 48 at a time, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. This does
but
not.
I can
This
still
is not like a
modulate.
Spectrum 128.
Yeah, but the good thing about that is I can modulate the code into essentially the GUI OS is basically a bunch of programs that are 48K.
Yeah.
And then you switch between them depending on what you click on.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And
you have a common
point,
chunk, the chunk number 3, because that is fixed as a Timex create the computer. The operating system always use the chunk tree for stack and also for system variables. That is necessary to don't move or not change.
This is one of the reasons I put it on pause, because sometimes you put projects on pause because you just got to think about things for a while. And that's what I was thinking about. I read that old article that someone had written on bank switching back then, and all the details of it. I reread that description article like 3 or 4 times on how to get it to do bank switching, and I was like, okay, I really don't know how to do this yet myself. So my question today is, has someone really already done all that work for me, and all I got to do is just send in some commands?
Yes. No, in our case, we map all to the doc bank. For the Timex operating system and switching mode is a doc for the Timex operating system. Okay, you need to map the memory into the doc, and then you modify the doc assignment for flash or for RAM.
Okay.
Those assignments was created with special TPI commands.
Well, we can get into the details later.
Yeah.
Like I
Yes,
can
we don't
actually
need to.
meet with you separately, but I'm just in general asking. Like the article said that the bank switching would allow it to go up to, what was it, 2 megs or something?
Oh, 16 meg, the original Timex.
Oh, 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that bank switching is not emulated per se in the Pico. That was a nibble, that was Timex's way, but the Pico's, I guess, like Gustavo said, they're just kind of mapping it to the dock bank. So you don't have like,
Doing the
254
full bank
banks.
switching, but it does still allow you to just switch stuff, which essentially does the same thing, right?
Yeah, I guess you have multiple things you could switch into the dock bank, but you're still limited to what? Not quite 64K, I guess, but
8K
because chunk
chunks.
3, yeah, because
Except-
chunk 3 has to be on because the video's there and the video memory's there and stuff like that.
And you don't really want to take out chunks
Right.
0 and 1 because those contain the operating system.
So these are the details that I'll have to start diving into.
Yeah.
So maybe for my next project, what I'll do is I'll try what I can get with the high soft Pascal and report back to you people what happens.
Okay. And David and Rich, since both of you own Larkin systems, we talked about your Larkin systems and how they would work with the Pico. And Ricardo has given me some instructions on some possible configuration settings to change to see if we can't make the compatibility the maximum. But yes, in theory they'll work just fine. Willie has it working with his JLO system, so he has the Pico, he has the JLO disk drives, he's got the JLO printer port, and as he pointed out to me, he's out of slots. He needs a bigger board.
Okay, final question. Can you concatenate the tap files?
On your computer, sure. On your PC, but
On
not
PC,
through the Pico
sure,
yet.
because a lot of programs require a loader
Multiple.
and then machine code.
Yep. So that's not a thing that we have completely solved yet, but it is a thing that we are working on. Ricardo's got a lot of work done in that ability to open a tap file and then put multiple things into it, as opposed to just one program.
Perhaps use the move command to do that.
Well, the Gustavo's ROM extensions use they basically extend the load and save commands. They don't use any of the native like move, cat, erase, format. They don't use any of those native commands that were intended to work in the 2068. But So we'll figure out, some kind of method that won't be too painful.
Okay, so will this come as an update to the Pico, or will I have to brand a new?
No.
buy
So
brand-
so the cool thing here, and actually, Joe and I did essentially this thing just before the meeting was you plug there's a somebody, I think it's a USB B
Micro USB.
thank you, connector on the Pico chip itself, right? You plug that in to your computer, and there's a little button on the Pico. So let me back up. You hold the button down, you plug the thing into your computer, and that boots the Pico up in this special mode that makes it appear to the computer like it's a thumb drive. And then there'll be a file that you download from GitHub that's the update, and you just drag that thing from your computer to that thumb drive. It'll copy it, and then it will magically and some operating systems don't like this, it'll just unmount itself, and you'll get this, I get an error message about improperly mounted. But anyway, that's the upgrade.
Okay, is there a written file on this procedure somewhere?
Not yet, but it's the same, with the exception of holding the button down. It's the same as copying a file to a thumb drive. It's a very, very
Yes.
simple process.
Simple.
Yes.
Yeah.
The internal memory of the Pico is mapped as a pen drive on the PC.
Right.
And then you drag the file, the correct or the new operating system, and that's it. You copy on those virtual pen drive. It's not a virtual pen drive, it's real, the TS-Pico module, and you rewrite the image directly. Very easy.
Yeah.
Regarding the move or the another commands you mentioned, that could be possible in the future to create an navigator or explorer program to file handle inside the Pico. The interface support that, but it's not yet the program tool created. Is possible, and also Ricardo now are working on the exchange information between the files names or all the info regarding the SD card with the Timex computer side. Is use it's not a what is alphanumeric
An
what
array.
is the array? Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
now are working with the numeric array, but that is on this phase to exchange numbers and also text info between the Pico and Timex.
Yeah.
For example, you can load the directory, all the names in an array.
Yep.
That is the method. Then when you single for 1 to n, you scan the array and then print the names, or also use the names in a basic program. That is the powerful of the Pico system, but the TPI interface also. Okay, that is one of the key points of this technology.
So at some point, we expect one of you to write the Norton Commander for the 2068.
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
what Gustavo was saying is true, that the back end is there, and you can that directory command, you can load it and get a directory on your screen, but there's also a way to load the directory into an array, and then you can do whatever kind of magic you want on that thing. So
I have a question for the Pico team, I guess, in general. So I was thinking like this would be used in a way like I use my emulator and I use my real hardware, where I use both to get done what needs to be done and then get it to the real hardware the simplest manner, rather than trying to do everything from the 2068. I would expect that's how you guys view the Pico. Like I don't think everything needs to be done from the real hardware, when it's so much easier to concatenate a tape file on my PC,
Yes.
and then, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I have a comment on that though. So the GUI I was working on, when you go into the settings, you can change your wallpaper. It's basically that's a screen file, and so you'll be able to read screen files off of the Pico, and then also data files, and probably a couple more files the more I work on.
So Eric, to your point, I love Profile, which is this database program for the 2068. And apparently I'm not the only one. Willie also uses Profile, Adam. And and I was talking to Gustavo during one of our meetings working on this project, and I was like, you know, I want to be able to use that SRAM. I want to be able to put, you know, my data in the SRAM. And Gustavo pointed out that I can save, you know, or I can basically move the array into the SRAM and load another, you know, array. I can switch my array contents directly out to the SRAM. But another thing that we were talking about a couple weeks ago was that there's this tabletop role-playing game called Notorious that I want to implement on the 2068 because it's a solo role-playing game, and it's got really cool graphics. It also has really simple rules that I think that can be programmed easily into the 2068. And my thought here is I'm going to take that art and run it through one of these little converters to turn it into screen files, right? And all of those screen files are going to get loaded into the single tap file that's going to contain the program. So when you get to, you know, that point of the game, it'll load the screen file, just like your backgrounds.
Well, the difference is the backgrounds are user created.
Yeah.
So as long as you have a screen string file, you can put that on your micro SD card in the Pico, and then you can load that as your background.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that we need to look at this at it in two different ways. The Pico, you know, the Pico needs to be modified in such a way, the firmware, so that it supports multi subfile tap files. But for something like you're doing, Eric, in that case, it might make more sense to use the subdirectory functions in the Pico and think of this more as a disk system where exactly right. Someone could make their own wallpaper and drop it as a separate, and it has to be a tap file format, but drop it as a separate file in that subdirectory so that you don't have to worry about concatenating a bunch of stuff. You just, it's more like a Windows or a Unix system where you have a multiplicity of files that you open and close as necessary.
Right. The GUI itself will come with like probably 3 or 4 screen stream files for backgrounds. I've already created a couple using a separate tool in the Windows environment where you create these things and you pick the colors and all that stuff. But once I have the files, it'll come with like probably 3 or 4 of them. But people are going to want to do their own because it was kind of fun doing it when I made those couple ones. You do them on your regular PC, but once you have that file, then you just need to be able to get it on. And of course, using actual tape routine would be defeat the purpose because the whole goal of the GUI is to make everything fast.
What I would like to also see is if the Pico could also be rigged so that there's a way to boot up the 2068 in ZX Spectrum mode, because a lot of programs are not playable on the 2068 and require the ZX Spectrum ROM.
Yeah, I don't know if they want to implement that, but for me, it would just be the twister board and a different device that I bought from Europe.
Well,
and a different SD card, yeah.
One other way to think about it, David, is instead of having it boot into Spectrum mode, there can just be a little program that gets loaded from the SD card that does all that in the background.
Yeah, because you can put a Spectrum ROM in one of the slots, and as Jeff is saying, just issue a couple commands. And then there's a little bit of an extra step because the Spectrum ROM doesn't really know that the Pico exists, so you have to use some out commands to get it to actually load stuff.
I think that Ricardo is working now
Yeah,
as a beta in a special load system for Pico, that the final mapping of the Pico instruction is using the Spectrum ROM in replace of the home ROM, no switching, and then exchange the image of the tab file of the game with the RAM system, and then run directly. And the reason is you load the program using the TS-2060A, but after finish, switch automatically the ROM and then run the program that you say.
You know, I was just noticing we're kind of getting very specific on the use of the Pico.
thank you.
And you know, maybe we can make this more generalized next time or something like that, or ask these kind of specifics to the group.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Always helpful. I wanted to check. I see a name I don't recognize. Somebody called RyPie. Unless that's
me.
wait a minute, that's Ryan. I just figured it out.
I just had dialed in on the Pi so I could share a screen over there in case it just crapped out.
Okay. All right.
That's what I always call him in person. So
RyPie? I think that might be your new name. I love it.
You know, Carl and Ryan, this is kind of on topic, kind of not. But last weekend, you all got together with two other people and had like an Atari group meeting, and I wasn't able to attend because I had COVID. Can you guys give a 2 or 3 minute summary of like how that went? I mean, I kind of heard, but since not too many people get together in groups, maybe you could tell us how that went. Don't jump up and start doing it at the same time like that.
Well, you know, I mean, the food that I got wasn't that great. I'll just say that much. I'll have to get something different next time. Ryan got some. Looks like a What did you get, Ryan? That was like you get at Arby's. It's like a French dip kind of thing.
You guys went to a brewery. It's not exactly, you know,
French
gourmet
dip.
food. So
Well, yeah, but I got I got a bratwurst, and I was like, I mean, anyway, you know,
You know what?
that's
Maybe it was the Atari stuff that just sort of
oh,
put the bad
probably
taste
so.
in your mouth.
that could be, you know, and the whole point of kind of doing that is, you know, I'm collecting the old systems, right? I never had an Atari when I was a kid. I didn't have a Commodore. I didn't have a TI. Of course, I know about the systems. Other people, when I was a kid, had them, right? I mean, we all know that. But I never had any of those systems as a kid, and I'm kind of more of a hardware guy, right? Yeah, sure, you can run all this stuff in emulation, and it's just not the same. I mean, why do I want to run that on my Windows PC? You know, I would rather, you know, have the experience of, you know, having the real physical hardware. But anyway, so Atari is one of the machines that I just really haven't had the opportunity yet to pick up, you know, because, you know, you look on eBay and you get into these buying spurts and then you kind of don't. And so when I was looking, you know, they were just a little bit too pricey for what I was looking, you know. I don't mind spending some money for these things, but I don't want to spend, you know, $250 for an 800 XL that somebody thinks is fantastic, right? I mean, I'm sure it is, but I don't think it's $250.
It is fantastic, Carl. It is fantastic.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I'll spend $100 maybe if I have to fix it. Then that's even better because then I can get inside of it and see how the hardware works. But
you know, my question actually is a little more specific. Rather than talking about the Atari, just because you guys got together 4 people at once,
you
know, got to chat about classic computers in general, because I understand that's kind of more the way it went, rather than just talking Atari. Am I correct?
Well, I think a lot of it was kind of reminiscing for those guys. They were talking about the old group, and I can't remember the guy that passed away, but you know, like his name is Ernie. There you go. That his, you know, he uses those old plastic label maker things that we had with the wheel, you know,
right?
back in the the Dymos. But you know, I guess you would put that those on all of his equipment. So I remember we talked about that, and of course, I can't remember the guy's name, the electrical guy. He was
Rick.
Yeah, Rick was showing us pictures of the modem that he built back then, and because we brought up the point that you guys were kind of playing around with the BBS thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and some other things like that. So he was showing the modem that he made, and so I mean, it wasn't really too classic computers so much. I mean, it's still kind of pretty much Atari based, obviously,
Okay.
because especially Rick, right? He's an
Right.
Atari
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Right. He
Right.
has, he kind of mentioned that to us. He's like, that's all he does is Atari. He knows
Mhm.
Atari. He doesn't have Commodores, and so, and then I guess, what's the other guy? Brian,
Brian. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he was more. I guess he had some other things too, but it was really kind of just. It was kind of more Atari-ish because we really didn't talk about the Timex.
Sure. Yeah. I
Because
understand.
those guys, wouldn't know about that. But and then of course, he brought us our Atari little gift packages or whatever you want to call it with the original, the 800s there that
Oh,
Ryan's showing
can you
us.
highlight that screen for Ryan?
Yep. I don't know what that thing is.
I've never heard of it.
What?
What's that weird Fuji symbol?
Yeah. What are all those funny colored buttons?
So he gave Ryan a set, he's got that, and then he's got I think the 1050 floppy drive, and the cartridge I guess is in there for basic. The one he gave me is, I mean, it's the same. It's an original 800, but I have the it's like a newer disk drive. It's not the 1050; it's a later version. And I don't have a cartridge. He, couldn't get. I guess there's like a Rev A and a Rev B and a Rev C cartridge, and they, I guess the Rev C is the holy grail.
Mm-hmm.
And but he made a floppy disk with some kind of basic on it. But I guess now he's through some recent conversations. I guess you can build those cartridges apparently.
Yeah.
And I guess you just need to get the shell from an existing cartridge, right? And I guess you can maybe just swap the board out inside with an EEPROM on it or something. I don't know, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what we talked about, and
I can't get them in there for scale.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot the 1050 was pretty big.
Yeah, it's a big drive. I mean, it's not as big as the 1541, but
yeah,
or the 810. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up this conversation with the Atari, but I was just curious how it went with talking in person and meeting new people and things like that, because it's kind of a rare event for that.
It is
a
rare thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have folks around your, because I think a lot of you are in some fairly large metro areas, right? I mean, Albuquerque's not, not that big. I mean,
it's the Timex capital of the world, man.
It is.
I don't know about that, but
I'm not going to drive all the way to Albuquerque just to.
That's Twitter talk.
But I'm sure 40 years on, right? I mean, there's going to be only certain people that are really still, interested in those things. But I'm sure if you looked around, you probably find some folks in your area that share some kind of common interest there. But I don't know why Albuquerque just happened to kind of be the melting pot for Adam and Ryan and myself, and I guess even John Brown, which I haven't heard too much from him lately, but there's quite a few of us that are had that back in the day.
One thing I wanted to ask was, I was actually glad to hear the Pico was only doing commands because of what I was working on. But I also want to know if anyone else worked on stuff that fell into the category of what I was doing, basically OS/GUI code.
Eric, there was a Paul Bingham. If you go to the TimexSinclair.com website and look up Paul Bingham, he wrote a bunch of interesting articles about doing things like that.
I might have already taken some of stuff from him.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I mean, right now, I mean a modern.
Currently, yeah, that's a good question. Good question. in the last 15 minutes. Jeff, do you want to show that project? Are you in a place where you able to show what you've been working on, or do you want to save that for another meeting?
Well, you can just mention what it is. Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna out Jeff on this.
Oh,
And Jeff, you might be, your video's off, but your microphone's on.
How's that?
We can hear you. We don't see
Okay.
anything. Oh, okay.
So there's my Pico video board. It's a lower cost version than the FPGA, and right now it's running. I think, Joe, this is the same program that you have on yours. So, but it's running a Christmas program that I got off of the web. So essentially, I've been checking things out, and it's designed to provide clearer video. And right now, I've verified that the 64 column mode works, and that the basic mode for Timex video on 32 column works as well. So still more testing to be done.
This is VJ out, or is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did add those capabilities, the other resolutions and modes into it also, but there's only what, 2 colors in the other mode.
Well, only if you're stuck with what Timex did.
Right.
Yeah.
And we won't go any farther than that.
Right. Cool. Thank you, Jeff. And Mark M, do you feel like saying hi, because you look new to me?
Sorry, my son jumped in on the little.
We have that all the
device.
time, Mark.
No, actually, I've been here for the last 3 or 4 of these,
Okay.
and I'm old enough to have grown up with all of the computers I just heard discussed. So particularly the Timex was my personal favorite. So the 2068 rather.
Did you start on the 2068?
Technically, I started on the 64. That was
Okay.
the very first computer the family got, but the 2068 was the first one that I had all to myself in my bedroom.
Cool.
So.
Cool. Did you have a black and white or color TV? And I only ask because I know how terribly expensive color TVs were back then.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Yeah. Cool.
Probably color.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry we didn't, recognize you as a new person in the past, but we're glad you're here.
Well, how
No
did you
worries.
use your 2068 back in the 80s?
Well, the funny story I've told my son, who's now 10, was that I had written a complete game. It was sort of chess. It was similar to chess in that you moved pieces around a board. But I, at that time, was just on a creative flow, a creative mind, a mental flow for, I don't know, 3 days straight, as you could do, when I was 12 or 13 or however old I was, written it. And then I went to hand the computer sitting in my lap to my brother, had never saved it, of course. And the very first thing he did was bump the power button off on the desk. So then went 3 days, and it was probably at that time, the biggest thing I'd ever done. So I think I probably cried myself to sleep that night, because I thought I had something wonderful. So anyway, I told that story. I've embellished, of course, to my son. So that's how I got him keyed into all this crazy classic stuff his dad does.
Wait, so what's your son doing in terms of the classic stuff?
He's just now getting in. He's 10, so he's just getting into being able to program. And I've been toying for the last month or 2 about whether I want to start him off on something, very modern. He's played with Scratch for probably a year or 2 now.
Okay.
But do I want to, send him off and teach him software engineering with Python or C or whatever, or maybe even BASIC for that matter? Or do I want to set up a little, 2068 in his room? Because I've got a couple here.
A black and white TV.
What's that, black and white? Exactly. Because he has a rough idea. Because all the stories I keep telling him. Oh, back in my day. we didn't have these fancy LCD flat panel curved monitors. We had a little 13-inch black and white TV. And he's seen half of that, because I've done some collecting over the last few decades. So I'll be honest, so it probably will be an Apple, just because I've got a couple of nice Apple setups, nice color monitors and stuff.
Like Apple II, you mean?
Yeah, 2 enhanced. Because that was what I did in school, of course.
Let me see.
Never owned one myself.
Mike, I'm just looking for the eject button right now.
That's all right. I knew it. As soon as I said anything. No, I don't know. I honestly, I don't even have it decided. So
We're
There's,
pretty
I can't
accepting.
remember the name of it now, but I did see there was like I think it's like an iPad app, but it's probably ported to several platforms, which gives you sort of this virtual 8-bit programming environment, geared
And I don't
heavily
even,
towards
and I
game
don't even know
development.
kids these days. If you're a kid and you're learning to program, I'm not sure that it would even be great to give them these kind of old computers, right? Because I mean they can learn on them, but I mean, and they'll get some background, but it's not really relevant today.
The only thing it would do is structure.
Well, true, but I mean, in my mind, I would think, well, maybe give them like an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi kind of thing. That's kind of more the bottom floor these days, right? As far as these kind of computers, and I think that would be, in my opinion, if I were doing something like that as a kid today, that's kind of what I would, be looking to get into, is programming those kind of things, a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino.
Well,
especially if he's getting into electronics, an Arduino would even be better because you can build your own projects, right? And then now you got the hardware and the software, working together to do what you want.
Right.
But for the instant, so the instant feedback though, BASIC is on an Apple or an Atari or Commodore or even a Timex is not a bad experience. I mean, part of the problem, I get what you're saying, but part of the problem with the Arduino is that you have to essentially learn C, and with a Pi you have to learn.
Well, you
something.
Also have to start learning electronics pretty heavily too.
Right, exactly. It's going into the deep end pretty quickly. Even though the Arduino and processing was designed originally so artists could have access to hardware tools, but like Python, I mean, there's Python for kids books, but I'm not entirely sure that that's as accessible as BASIC is. BASIC was a real success in that respect.
Well, there's a website that's a ZX81 emulator.
Oh yeah,
you can tell your kids just to go to that site, start writing a program. I think you can save right to a file on your machine.
Yeah, I have a feeling if you do that, though, Child Protective Services is going to be called.
Besides, you'd miss the wobble and die.
Exactly. And where's the wobble button on that website?
Save them the headache and traumatization of actually trying to save programs back then.
I think that ZX81 emulator on my iPad has a Rampart wobble option.
You don't actually need it. Mark had his brother hit that button for him, so.
Mark, you need to invite your brother over to help.
Right.
Well, I do agree. There's a little bit of a disconnect because these young people, they're signing up for their first programming class, and then they're throwing Python at them and stuff like this, and I'm like, some of them may jump right into it, but I think some people,
it's
the algorithm concept and the steps with the line numbers actually helps them get there.
Well, one of the benefits I think of going the classic route is I can pop the cover off at 2068 and I can actually point out 8 data lines, 8 or 10 or 12, or I forget how many are in the Timex. Address lines, I can point at a RAM chip and I can describe that thing because he can see it visually. Now, Arduino kind of, but a lot of that, you know, already we're at a second layer of integration. So it's
Right.
like, okay, this chip has all these 5 features. It's inside it. Just imagine it, you know. So that's kind of was my motivation for going with the classics, because that's
Oh,
how I
you're
learned.
talking
You know,
about
I learned.
right.
Yeah, I'm talking about the whole 9 yards. I mean, that's how I learned. I learned machine language almost before I learned basics. So, and so I think that's one of the competitive advantages I have against my younger peers. And as I do software development work, is, you know, I grew up understanding what the CPU did, you know, and as you're pointing out, they just get Python thrown at them. They have no clue, you know, what a cache is underneath it, and what, you know, 5 volts versus 3 volts versus 1.8 volts, you know, all these different things, gauge shifters, all that stuff.
All
They'd have
interesting
no
stuff.
clue.
Yeah.
And that was
Well, I
an
used to
education
teach.
I was getting at
Yeah.
9 and 10.
I used to teach a introductory to programming, or actually it's called introductory to computer science class here at Weber State University in Ogden years ago. And back then we were teaching them Pascal, not Python. And even then I was like I had to follow a curriculum, but I was wanting to force them to do line numbers just as a first assignment. Because even jumping right into Pascal, it was a little bit, I don't know what you call it, like slightly confusing.
Gentlemen, we have 5 minutes. Hey, Ryan. Cool. Can you share your screen, Ryan, in some way?
Yeah, let me see how it'll work.
Okay.
I got everything else turned off over there,
so while you figure that out, Adam always prompts me, when's the next meeting? And I always struggle and say, geez, I don't know, I haven't done the math. Oh my God, it's New Year's Day, January 1st. Hey, Ryan, can you share your Fuse screen only? So we can get the full screen experience?
yeah, let's see.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I got to pick that off this other tab here.
There you go. So right, January 1st, 9 p.m. We don't have an agenda. Hopefully we can talk about things. Oh, that looks so nice.
That was written when you were a teenager?
Did you write this one, Ryan?
My kids would laugh at this. Yeah.
Ryan, you have to let us upload this to the website.
So I did do, this one does have a sort of a, I did
Is
a
that new or old?
December 84,
right there,
baby.
December 84.
Oh, okay.
I improved when it makes the hill, it has to do a fill, which is not fast.
But you know what?
But
it's fun to watch this kind of thing.
So I generated the
There you are.
hill like with this.
You know why
I
it's not
generated the
fast? It's
hill
because
with
it's cold. It's winter.
Yeah. Well, I
That's-
generated it originally with the line arcs, and then it was doing a point check. And now it was like, well, just generate them off a sine wave, and so you know where up to fill to, and I have to check all the time. So it's a little faster, but everything else is the same.
Mostly just UDGs. Is that a period for the snow? Or did you do a UDG for the snow?
It's just a period.
Okay. Okay.
And I'd always wanted to do a little semi-sprite machine code thing as a generic thing for a tool for all the things that just would animate a character moving between the character cells pixel by pixel for a smooth motion. But it would probably be jerky in the end, doing a slide to the next cell. And then for something like this, it wouldn't be smooth. I think I'd have to do a line scroll instead.
Okay.
Or something like that. But anyway, this is just simple character.
Very nice. That's perfect.
Character
Ryan.
thing. And then
Did you write this originally?
Yeah. And so I would take like a screenshot of this I don't know if you remember some time ago, I showed the calendar program.
Yeah.
So like I would take a screenshot of this for December and include that in my calendar I would print for the next year. Right. I don't think I have that handy to show, but that program would take screenshots that I would load in, print a calendar, and then I would print that on the 2040 and then cut the pages.
I love
put
how
that
you
together.
packed a reindeer into one character.
Yeah, and apparently the I don't know, Santa seems to be wearing a cowboy hat, I think, but not really sure why
Maybe
that
that's
was.
appropriate for New Mexico.
Minor 49er.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did what was it?
David, do we have an agenda for the next meeting?
We don't have an agenda for the
okay,
next
just
meeting.
wondering.
So if y'all have stuff you want to talk about, please send it to the groups list and I'll pick it up off of there. But you know, you've got Christmas break coming up. At least one or two of us must be not working during Christmas break and can spend all of that time developing new thanks. Developing a new project. Cool.
It's just recently
There was
typed in,
one-
or was this already archived?
This was off of one of my tapes. I guess I'd copied it at a user group meeting.
Nice.
So is this on your site now, David?
No, because Ryan won't send it to me.
Wow, he's holding back.
Is it
He's
still
going to sell it on
copyrighted?
eBay first. Give him a second.
I'll have to send it. Yeah.
Send it to the
But
group
I've
so
been
everybody can get it, and we put this on their screen for Christmas morning.
I know
Hey,
my
David?
project. Go ahead.
Oh, David. So what I was really asking earlier is what I'm working on. Could it be something that other people are glad I'm working on it, or
Yes.
is it stepping on toes of anybody?
No.
Okay.
Yes. So and the reason that I asked you about GitHub is that you know, I have this GoFundMe set up on the website, and one of the things that the GoFundMe is funding is a GitHub where we can, you know, if you want to use it, you know, we can create a I don't remember what the special kind of account is, but you have to pay for accounts. We've been using it for the Pico, and what one of the Pico folks, I don't remember who suggested this, but is that we make it a home for anybody who wants to use, you know, put their projects up on GitHub, and then we'll figure out also how to link to existing projects, because I know Ryan has a GitHub and he puts some of his stuff up there. So what I want to do is make a, you know, a home.
Okay.
What am I looking at on Ryan's screen here? I don't quite understand.
This looks like
I was just showing, like, this is when I go through a tape that I've been recovering, making a little index with screenshots and resources.
Oh, for your personal use? Like this isn't on David's site.
No.
No,
Oh,
so
okay.
eventually I'm hoping to be able to gather all this stuff up, and then maybe we can figure out what to
Yes.
do. But I'm collecting all these.
Well, GitHub is free. So
Uh,
why do you need money?
in order to get a certain level of service, you have to pay for developer.
Oh,
accounts.
advanced service. Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Ryan, I love that you're using Markdown for this. That's awesome. I love Markdown.
Oh yeah. So it'll just be random things of like, oh, program I got from a user group, stuff I wrote.
Yeah.
Mostly stuff I wrote, I suppose. So there's that one, and then here's mine.
Slide.
This one may have wound up on that Fort Worth user group tape, possibly. And then my fonts, I'll show them off in the font editor.
Now those I would love access to.
See, Ryan?
Different fonts.
See, I'm telling you.
I think I can get to the so then the listings.
So yeah, we can collaborate. I just wanted to make sure that the stuff that the Pico people were working on was just cool enhancements that we're all gonna want and not the exact same things that I'm working.
Oh yeah, the Pico folks are focusing solely on what it can do and improving its
Features.
function.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's possible he'll have a feature with a high resolution with more colors, which would only benefit someone like me.
No, other folks. There's I don't know if you know about the ULA Plus, but that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I know about that.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not actually writing the graphics, writing the capability of doing the graphics.
Just the tools.
Yeah.
Correct. That keeps us busy enough and off the streets. Yes.
I would.
I don't know, Jeff. Does it keep you
my
off the
only-
streets?
Yeah, we can all work together, and I think it would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Years from now, yeah, because I don't want to write fonts, but if somebody else did, man, I'm going to use them.
Well, Ryan's fonts aren't free.
They're copyrighted, yeah.
It's cost you a penny a bit or something, or I can't remember now.
That's expensive.
Well, I'm
think,
not going to sell. I'm not going to sell what I write. It's going to be
Well,
free.
I was kidding, of course. I was kidding, Ryan. I think I am kidding, right, Ryan? I don't know. Well, I think that about wraps up our
No.
meeting. Is that right?
That's right. Thank
I
you.
need to.
But let's. You know what?
Those.
It'll cost you a box of floppy disks.
There we go. Oh Jesus, that's gonna be expensive. So
No,
maybe
I got plenty.
Maybe Adam next. Maybe one of the agenda items will be talking a little bit about this GitHub environment and folks being able to, use it as a place where we can try to gather all of the things that we're all working on as a common entry point, at least.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Okay. All right. Everybody, if you're a Merry Christmas celebrator, Merry Christmas to you. If you are some sort of painful agnostic,
or happy holidays or not happy holidays.
Happy holidays, right? Enjoy the red and green and the white and whatever else that is that floats your boat this time of year. The Yule log. Don't forget that the shortest day of the year is coming, and that soon it will, daylight will become longer. And also New Year's. So, don't forget to start writing 2024 on your checks.
Checks.
It's a check. Bye, guys.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
good one.
Bye, guys.